Welcome, rare gems. People often talk about the chosen one as if it's some mystical figure straight out of a fantasy novel. But in real life, when you come across a Sigma female, the signs are unmistakable. There's something about her presence that quietly commands attention without asking for it. She's not loud or seeking the spotlight, but everyone feels her influence. You might not notice it at first, but once you do, it's impossible to unsee. She moves differently, thinks differently, and people react to her in ways they wouldn't to anyone else. Whether it's shifting their tone when they speak to her, or second-guessing their own decisions, there's a subtle but profound change in behavior when they realize they're in the presence of someone truly exceptional. Recognizing a Sigma female as the chosen one isn't about flashy admiration. It's about the quiet, instinctive response people have when they know they're dealing with someone who stands apart. The things they do aren't always conscious, but they reflect an undeniable respect for the way she navigates the world. Without further ado, let's dive in. But before that, I want to say a big thank you to all you amazing people for tuning in. I see all your likes and comments, and your engagement means the world to me. I am truly grateful and appreciate everything you do. I heart you all dearly. Now let's get started. Number 10. Calculated distance. When people realize that a Sigma female is the chosen one, they often find themselves instinctively pulling back. It's not that she's intimidating in the traditional sense. She doesn't need to raise her voice or dominate a room, but there's something about her presence that makes people pause. Her sharp instincts cut through the noise, and that can be unsettling for those who aren't ready to face the truth about themselves. She has a way of seeing through facades, picking up on the things people try to hide, both from the world and from themselves. For some, this recognition brings admiration and respect, but for others it sparks a need to keep their distance. They're aware that her insight might expose things they'd rather not deal with. It's a quiet fear, the kind that doesn't make them run away but keeps them from getting too close. They might engage with her on a surface level, but they carefully avoid deeper connections. It's not because they dislike her. On the contrary, they often admire her, but they're not ready to face the mirror she holds up to their own flaws and insecurities. In this calculated distance, there's a mix of respect and self-preservation. They know that getting too close means confronting uncomfortable truths, and not everyone is prepared for that. So they admire her from afar, aware of her power but careful not to let it touch them too deeply. Number 9. Hidden competition. When people recognize a Sigma female as the chosen one, a quiet competition often emerges. It's not always obvious, and it doesn't always come from a place of hostility. But there's an underlying tension that others feel when they're around her. They see how she carries herself, how effortlessly she navigates challenges, and suddenly, they're measuring themselves against her, whether they realize it or not. She sets the bar high without even trying, and that can stir a mix of admiration and insecurity in those around her. This hidden competition isn't about direct confrontation. It's more subtle than that. People start comparing their own achievements to hers, trying to match her calm confidence or the way she handles difficult situations. They might push themselves a little harder, not because she's pushing them, but because her very existence makes them question if they're doing enough. They see how she seems to excel without seeking attention, and they wonder if they can do the same. For some, this competition can be motivating. It drives them to improve, to step up their game. But for others, it can create frustration, especially if they find themselves falling short. They might start to feel overshadowed by her presence, even though she's not intentionally outshining anyone. The competition is often one-sided, with her being unaware of it altogether. In the end, this hidden competition reflects more on the people around her than on her. She's not competing with anyone. She's just being herself. But in doing so, she challenges others to reassess their own paths, whether they like it or not. Number 8. Attempted imitation. When people recognize a Sigma female as the chosen one, some are drawn to her in a way that goes beyond simple admiration. They attempt to imitate her. They see in her a blueprint for success, a model of confidence and independence that they desperately want to embody. Her quiet strength, her ability to move through life without seeking validation, becomes something they try to replicate in their own lives. They watch how she handles situations, how she interacts with others, and they begin to adopt her habits, her approaches, in hopes that some of her essence will rub off on them. But imitation, no matter how well-intentioned, rarely captures the full picture. What they often miss is that her confidence isn't just about the outward behaviors. It's deeply rooted in who she is. It comes from a place of self-assurance that can't be easily mimicked. While they might adopt her calm demeanor or her methodical way of handling challenges, what they don't realize is that these traits are the result of years of internal work, self-reflection, and an unshakable sense of self. For those trying to imitate her, there's often a sense of frustration. They follow her steps, but the results don't quite match up. The confidence feels forced, the independence brittle. They may even grow disillusioned, realizing that what makes her so unique isn't something that can be copied. Her essence isn't a formula. It's the product of a journey they haven't fully walked themselves. Dear Rare Gems, if you haven't subscribed yet, please click on the subscribe button and become a member of our community. Your support means the world to me and is deeply appreciated. Thank you. Now let's continue our video. Number 7. Resentment lurks. When a Sigma female walks into a room, her presence can stir a range of emotions in those around her, and not all of them are positive. Some people, whether they admit it or not, start to feel a quiet resentment toward her. It's not because she's wronged them or stepped on anyone's toes. Instead, it's simply because who she is, confident, self-assured, and successful, shines a spotlight on their own insecurities. She's the kind of person who seems to have it all together, and that can be unsettling for those who feel like they're still struggling to find their footing. Her calm demeanor, her ability to navigate life without needing approval from others, can make people reflect on what they lack. And in that reflection, resentment starts to fester. It's not the kind of resentment that leads to open conflict. Most people won't even express it out loud. But it's there, lurking beneath the surface. They might roll their eyes when she's not looking, dismiss her achievements as luck, or quietly undermine her confidence with passive-aggressive comments. All the while, she remains unaware or unbothered by the quiet storm brewing around her. This resentment isn't really about her. It's about what she represents, a level of self-assuredness and success that others wish they could reach but haven't. Instead of inspiring them, it makes them feel inadequate by comparison. And rather than confronting those feelings head-on, they project them onto her. It's a silent struggle that says more about their own battles than it does about her. Number 6. Pretending not to notice. In social settings, when a Sigma female enters the scene, there's a peculiar reaction some people have. They pretend not to notice her. It's as if, by ignoring her presence, they believe they can diminish her importance. They might avert their gaze, avoid direct conversations, or act as though her presence is just another detail in the background. But in truth, their deliberate nonchalance only underscores her significance. This behavior is rooted in denial. People who feel threatened or insecure around her may convince themselves that if they don't acknowledge her, she won't have any impact. But this tactic often backfires. Her quiet confidence, the way she naturally commands respect without seeking it, makes their indifference seem forced and transparent. Everyone else can see what's happening. While they pretend she's invisible, her influence quietly fills the room. This act of pretending not to notice isn't just about ignoring her presence. It's an attempt to protect their own egos. Admitting her importance might mean admitting that they don't measure up, that she brings something to the table they lack. So they play it cool, feigning indifference, all while she continues to be a focal point whether they like it or not. What they fail to realize is that her influence isn't dependent on their acknowledgement. She doesn't need validation from others to solidify her place. By pretending not to notice, they only make her stand out more, highlighting the very qualities they're trying to downplay. In the end, their denial of reality only emphasizes the truth. They can't diminish what's undeniable. Number 5. Overanalyzing her choices. When a Sigma female makes a decision, some people can't help but pick it apart, analyzing every little detail, as if they're on a mission to find a flaw. It's not because they're genuinely curious or trying to understand her better. It's about proving to themselves that she's not as perfect as she seems. They want to believe that somewhere beneath her composed exterior, she's just as fallible as anyone else. They might question her choices in a way that feels almost obsessive, dissecting her actions and looking for cracks in her seemingly flawless armor. If she takes a risk, they'll watch closely, hoping it doesn't pay off. If she stays calm under pressure, they'll speculate that it's just a front. It's as if they're waiting for the moment when she stumbles, so they can reassure themselves that she's not invincible. But what they don't realize is that this overanalyzing only highlights their own insecurities. Instead of focusing on their own growth, they're fixated on proving her wrong. It becomes less about her and more about their need to feel better about themselves. The irony is that while they're busy scrutinizing her every move, she's moving forward, unfazed by their judgments. This relentless overanalysis can be exhausting for them because the reality is that she's not making decisions to impress or please anyone. She's following her own path, and whether or not they find fault with her choices doesn't change her course. In the end, their obsession with her decisions only serves as a reminder of her impact and their need to measure up. Number 4. Projecting their insecurities. When a Sigma female stands strong in who she is, it can be intimidating for those who aren't as secure in themselves. Instead of confronting their own insecurities, some people choose to project them onto her. They might accuse her of being cold, arrogant, or unapproachable, not because she actually embodies those traits, but because they can't handle the strength she exudes. It's easier for them to label her as distant than to admit that her independence makes them uncomfortable. They see her confidence and mistake it for arrogance because it highlights what they lack. Her calm, composed demeanor is misinterpreted as being cold when in reality, she's just not playing into the need for constant validation or approval. These accusations aren't really about her. They're a reflection of the insecurities these individuals carry. It's a defense mechanism, a way for them to cope with their feelings of inadequacy. If they can paint her as the problem, they don't have to face their own shortcomings. It's a way of deflecting the discomfort they feel in her presence. But what they don't realize is that their projections don't affect her. She's not concerned with what others think of her because her sense of self isn't tied to external opinions. She recognizes these accusations for what they are, misplaced insecurities that have nothing to do with her. In the end, projecting their issues onto her only reinforces the fact that she stands on solid ground while they are still struggling to find their footing. Number 3. Unsolicited advice. When people encounter a Sigma female, her autonomy can be unsettling. Her ability to navigate life on her own terms, without seeking approval or guidance, stands out. Some individuals, threatened by this independence, may feel the need to reassert their relevance by offering unsolicited advice. It's not that they genuinely want to help. It's more about trying to regain some control or influence in a situation where they feel overshadowed by her self-sufficiency. This advice often comes across as condescending, as if they believe she's missing something only they can provide. They might suggest changes she should make or paths she should consider, all while masking their discomfort with a facade of concern. Deep down, they recognize that she's the chosen one, the person who doesn't need others to tell her how to live her life. But they still want to feel like they have a role to play, even if it's unnecessary. To her, this unsolicited advice can be more of an annoyance than a benefit. She didn't ask for it, and she doesn't need it. Her decisions are carefully considered, based on her own experiences and instincts, not on the opinions of those who feel threatened by her autonomy. She listens politely, but she doesn't let their words sway her from her course. In the end, these attempts to guide her are more revealing of the advice givers than of her. They show a need to feel important in the presence of someone who clearly doesn't rely on them. Meanwhile, she continues on her path, unbothered, knowing that she's fully capable of making her own decisions without anyone else's input. Number 2. Passive sabotage. When a Sigma female walks into the room, her presence alone can make some people uncomfortable. They recognize her strength, independence, and the quiet confidence that she carries. For those who feel threatened by her, competing with her directly seems futile. So instead, they resort to passive sabotage, a subtle, almost undetectable way of undermining her. This passive sabotage can take many forms. It might be a small, offhand comment meant to diminish her accomplishments. Or perhaps they'll forget to pass along important information that could help her succeed. They might pretend to support her, offering fake compliments while quietly working against her behind the scenes. Their goal is not to openly challenge her, but to chip away at her success in small, almost imperceptible ways. It's a way to assert some control, to feel like they still have some power in a situation where she clearly dominates. What makes passive sabotage particularly insidious is that it's often hard to detect. On the surface, everything seems fine, but underneath, there's a subtle current of opposition. The people engaging in this behavior aren't outright enemies. They may even appear to be friends or allies. But their actions reveal a deeper insecurity, a recognition of her superiority that they can't openly acknowledge. For the Sigma female, dealing with this kind of sabotage requires keen awareness. She can sense the undercurrents of resistance, but she doesn't let them derail her. She continues to move forward with her goals, knowing that their attempts to undermine her are just another sign of her undeniable strength. While others resort to passive-aggressive tactics, she remains focused, resilient, and unshakable. Number 1. Testing boundaries. When people recognize a Sigma female's strength, some are compelled to test her boundaries. It's a subtle challenge, a way to see if they can push her limits or somehow break through her unshakable composure. These tests can come in various forms: small provocations, attempts to manipulate, or even more direct confrontations. The goal isn't always to tear her down, but rather to measure themselves against her, to see if they can match or surpass her resilience. For the Sigma female, this boundary testing is nothing new. She's used to people trying to probe her defenses, trying to find weaknesses that don't exist. She understands that her calm, confident demeanor can be intimidating, and some people feel the need to challenge that, whether to prove something to themselves or to others. They might push her buttons, try to get under her skin, or attempt to draw her into conflicts that she'd rather avoid. But what they don't realize is that her boundaries aren't just a facade. They're deeply ingrained, built over time through experience and introspection. She knows who she is and what she stands for, and she's not easily swayed or provoked. When they push, she holds firm, unflinching. Their attempts to challenge her only reinforce her resolve. What often happens is that these boundary testers end up exposing their own insecurities. They see her strength as a mirror reflecting what they lack, and their challenges are more about their own shortcomings than about her. In the end, she remains unbroken, her boundaries intact, while they're left to grapple with the realization that they've met someone who can't be easily shaken or outmatched. In conclusion, when people recognize that a Sigma female is the chosen one, their reactions reveal more about themselves than about her. Whether it's admiration, resentment, or a desire to challenge her, these responses underscore the undeniable impact she has on those around her. Her presence forces people to confront their own insecurities, strengths, and weaknesses. She doesn't seek to be put on a pedestal or to provoke these reactions, yet they happen naturally because of who she is: strong, self-assured, and unapologetically authentic. In the end, how others respond to her is beyond her control. Some will attempt to imitate her, others will challenge her, and a few may even try to undermine her. But regardless of what they do, the Sigma female remains steadfast in her path. She doesn't bend to the opinions of others or allow their actions to dictate her course. Her strength lies in her ability to stay true to herself, regardless of the noise around her. Ultimately, those who truly recognize her worth will respect her for who she is, while those who can't handle her power will fade into the background. The Sigma female doesn't need validation from others, but the world can't help but acknowledge her presence. She is the chosen one, not because she seeks it, but because she embodies the qualities that make her stand out. even in a world that often tries to blend everyone into the same mold. And that is her true power. We greatly appreciate your support. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected to the Rare Gems community. Becoming a member and joining our community is vital to our growth. Share your thoughts and suggestions by leaving comments below. We value your feedback and enjoy hearing from you. Stay safe and thanks for watching. God bless.